Alright, you welcome back. In our last video we created these two nice looking paragraphs, and we created the header section and the nav section. So in this video we are going to be creating our sidebar, okay, and we'll do that very quickly. First off, we'll go to our HTML document, and I have a bunch of code that I already typed out, and it's here, and I'm just going to paste it up above my the div class that is titled main, okay, and that will form the content for our sidebar. Okay, let's assume that we are working on a social media website that advertises or talks about how to advertise or how to make money online, you know, one of those. Okay, so we have a bunch of tests for social media optimization, Google AdSense, social keyword research, and so on and so forth. Okay, it's just for example. This is not really important. Okay, I want you to just focus on the code, but we have to provide some tests to work with. Okay, so what we have done here is we have created a div class, and we'll give it a name side right, and that's what we'll be styling against to create our sidebar. And we created our h2 and open and close here, and then we created 3 paragraphs, and we gave the paragraph a class name of p2. So we're going to be styling against our p2 to give our various paragraphs color. Okay, and then we closed out our div down here. So we're just going to save that. That's pretty much all we need for our HTML. Okay, and why we are putting this up here before our main section is because we want to float it to the right of our main section, so it has to come first. Okay, HTML paints from top down order, is in order of hierarchy, so this particular side right has to come first, so that in order for our HTML our browser to render it to the right when we eventually float it to the right. So we're just going to save this off, and we'll move to CSS and begin to style. First off, let's go back to our HTML document. We're going to style against our h2. Okay, first off, we're going to style against our h2, and we'll simply just type h2. Okay, since we didn't create a class for that, we'll just call it by type, and we'll simply type h2 and give it a font size of 120 pixels as well. Sorry, 120%. We are still using percentage in reference to our font size here, which is 14. And we want this color. We're going to use the color lime. I like lime. Okay, we're going to use the color lime for our h2, and we're going to be styling our class, which we called p2. Okay, the paragraphs which we provided, and we're simply just going to give our paragraph color. Okay, there's not much to that. We just give it color, and we want the color to be blue, so it will stand out like a link, okay, in our web page. And we're going to style our side right now. That's where much of the action will take place. Okay, okay, so first off, we're going to give it a background color, and we want our background for side right to be gray, and we're going to create margin all over our side right. But okay, so we're going to give it a margin on okay, let's just give it margin 10 pixels for now. Okay, and we're going to give it a border radius of 5 pixels. I'll give it a border of 5 pixels as well, and we are going to float this particular item. But before we float, let's just close this out and see what we've got on our browser so far. Let's refresh this and see what we have on our browser, and this is what we have on our browser, and that is because we have not specified width from our particular section which we have created. I have not given it padding, so you can see that the text are very close to the edges, but we have given a margin of 10 pixels, and that is appearing all around. So we are going to give it padding. We're going to give it padding of 20 pixels. Okay, and we are going to specify our width in order to float. Remember, when we're talking about the float property, we said what you when you are floating, you must use the width property, or you must specify width. So we'll give it a width of 260 pixels. Okay, and we will float this particular item to the right. So we want it to be on the right side, side by side with our main content. Okay, so we are floating this to the right. So we are going to save this up and hit refresh. It will still not be perfect yet, and as you can see, we our sidebar is in size is 260 pixels, and now we have a bit of problem because our sidebar is now inside our main content, and we do not want that. What we want is for our sidebar to be side by side with our main content. So there are a few changes we have to make to this in order to get to the point where we want to get to. Okay, so the first thing we have to do is to begin to give these individual margins. Okay, but first of all, we have to work on our main container here. Okay, or our main content, which is our main section. And what we need to do there is we need to push this all the way from the right a bit towards the left and create more space for our sidebar. And how we do that is with our margin right. So we'll create some more margin to the right for this particular content section. Okay, so what we're going to do now is, first of all, we'll come here and create some margin parameters for our sidebar. So margin left will be 10 pixels. Okay, and we also want to give it a margin right of 10 pixels as well. Okay, margin hyphen top of 0 pixels. I will explain why we are using 0 pixels in a moment, but just follow me. Margin hyphen bottom of I think we've gotten our spelling wrong here. Okay, here's where we made a mistake. So yes, everything is right now. So margin hyphen bottom of 10 pixels. Okay, and that should do it. Now we're going to make a bit of calculation in order for us to know how much margin we are going to put to the right of our main section. So how you do that in order to have just about the right amount of space to create for our sidebar is you calculate the total of margin and the width as well as the padding. What it gives you is the margin that we're going to put here. Okay, so first off, we have a width of 260 plus a padding of 20, that's 280 pixels. Margin bottom makes it 290. Margin top makes it 300. Margin right makes it 310. Margin left makes it 320. So what we've got to do now is to create a margin right here for 320. So what we're going to do is we're just going to copy this margin parameter which we have in our sidebar, okay, and we'll paste it in our main contents. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we'll change this to 10 pixels, and here our margin right becomes 320 pixels. So I'll just go over that calculation again and tell you how we arrive at this 320 pixels. So we have a width of 260, which is the width of our sidebar, plus our padding of 20 pixels, that makes it 280 pixels, plus our bottom margin, that makes it 290, plus our top margin, that makes it 300, plus our right margin, that makes it 310, our left margin, that makes it 320. So you just calculate all of these pixel counts except the border and the border radius, okay, and it gives you 320 pixels, and that should be our margin right. Okay, so when we save this and hit refresh, it should be perfect by now, and voila. So as you can see, our sidebar and our main content are now standing side by side. Okay, so we have the sidebar by the right, which we called our side right, and of course we have our main content by the left. And you remember, I did not add margin to the top here. I gave it a margin of 0 pixels. That is because this is a floated element and it's not in the flow. Because it is outside the flow, it does not share margin with our navbar. It will then have its own margin that would then drag our sidebar a bit downwards, and will then have 20 pixels here. In order to avoid that, you will simply just set your margin top for your side right to 0 pixels, okay, to 0 pixels, so that you will have 10 pixels margin, which is supplied by our navigation bar. Okay, so that is how you add your sidebar. Everything looks nice and neat and is set, and when you resize, this is perfect. It fits in perfectly into your screen, and it does not fall out of place. It continues to stay in its place. Okay, so that ought to do it for this video. In our next video, we'll start to fill in the content for our navigation bar and of course our header section. Thank you for watching. We'll see you in our next class.